Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hi. Before we begin, just so you know you're not alone on this journey, at papernapkinwisdom.com, we've got free tools designed to help leaders like you find clarity and momentum. No pressure, just support. You can grab them anytime. You can even grab them from social media. The link's in the bio.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 257. Welcome back. Here we believe that bold ideas, even when scribbled on something as simple as a napkin, can become powerful catalysts for transformation. If you've ever found yourself moving at a breakneck pace, trying to grow your business, lead your team, or scale your impact, then you already know the tension I'm talking about. That feeling that in the rush to move fast, something might break. A system, a process, a relationship, or even your culture. But what if it didn't have to be that way? In this episode, I sit down with Adam Olalde, a seasoned entrepreneur and founder of one of the fastest growing companies in the automotive training space. Someone who's made a career of moving fast without leaving a trail of destruction behind him. Today, he's going to share something that's a leadership principle grounded in experience. And when you listen, you're going to discover that building great companies isn't about choosing between momentum and mindfulness. You can actually have both. So, what if today you gave yourself permission to move quickly, but with more clarity? What if the next level of your leadership wasn't about going faster, but about being more intentional as you go? As Adam shares his journey from high-octane growth to strategic, scalable systems, you'll hear what it means to lead with urgency and wisdom. Let's dive in. Adam, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here today.
Great. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
You shared a really interesting napkin, and I think we're going to get into, in the intro, I alluded to your company, but it says move fast and in brackets, try not to break things. Why did you share that with me?
I'm all about jumping and building your wings on the way down. And to me, you're always going to have to be moving for that philosophy to have life. But when you're moving, you have a high risk of breaking things. So try not to break all the things, but break some things along the way, and you will find yourself quicker and with more enthusiasm and excitement, in my opinion, than overthinking it.
I think there's really two really big parts of that you're also alluding to a little bit with the napkin. And jumping and building your wings on the way, part of that's preparation. You got to bring a bunch of stuff with you when you jump, right? You're not just jumping without the things that might be helpful on the way outward and hopefully upward, right?
Yeah, of course. General Colin Powell had a great philosophy, the 40-70 rule, he called it, where he never made a decision if he was less than 40% prepared. But if he had thought about it more than 70%, then he had overthought it. It was an old idea and you need to start over. There's a sweet spot. So come prepared, but be prepared to build the plane a little bit while it's flying. And that's how I've always lived my life.
And I really like that 40-70 rule. People talk about the other rules he has, but that 40-70 rule is really interesting because he does start over. He said the 70% and over, those ideas are old. Like that, they're not worth pursuing. And then I think he also talked about it being based on feel, right? And is that how you run it also, that 40/70 rule based on feel?
I don't know if being an entrepreneur is a gift or if it's something you learn. We're all probably different, but I would say that the way that I became an entrepreneur is because my gut told me it was time. My gut told me that I could do it. And so that gut, that entrepreneur's gut, is a real thing. And it is really how a lot of us calculate or make the final element of our decision. So yeah, it's a very real thing. How you feel is supremely important to this.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that we're also entrepreneurs are really sensitive to changes in momentum. I mean, the speed is important to your world and your napkin, but we're really sensitive to changes in momentum. We can see all the numbers look good. We can have a whole bunch of green on our dashboards, but something could be bugging us in our gut, and we're feeling it, right? We're feeling that shift in momentum, either slowing us down or picking us up. And part of it is like listening to that, right?
100%. And there are a lot of fun metaphors that I'm sure that we will uncover in the next 30 minutes or so, being in the racing industry. But you can have the most technologically advanced race car and the most well-trained driver, but when you're out there, the conditions change and you've got to feel it. You have to feel the car, you have to feel your business, you have to feel your gut. And the older I get and the more things that I attempt to and then ultimately accomplish, the more confident I get in believing in my gut, and no one's ever going to tell me otherwise.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the other part of jumping and building your wings on the way down is, so preparation's part of it, but this idea that some of what you prepared may not be relevant is also part of it. Like abandoning some ideas that you may have had when you jumped off. That's also important too, isn't it?
That's why I love his rule about 40/70, because I'm never so married to a concept by 70% or less that I'm not willing to just let it go if I see it's not going to work. We have to pivot. The faster you pivot, the more successful you'll be.
Yeah, and sometimes we like to use words like pivot instead of failing ideas because failing feels a little more final. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're inherent in your napkin and in your philosophy is this idea that you've just got to fail fast. You've got to fail ideas quick and move on to the next thing, right?
I think someone told me once it's only considered failure if it's the last decision you're going to make. So until then, you're just learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's get into how you applied this in your business, Xtreme Experience, because you know I love this space. I'm one of those. I'm one of the dreamers, right? That loves to rent a supercar, race around a track, and that's your business, isn't it?
That's our business. We created this thing. I created this thing so that you could experience someday, you could realize that someday could be today. And it could be in a way that is safe and is fun and is shareable. And I was all about that. I want to live while it's worth living.
Yeah. So look, this is not a small ticket business, right? This is something that takes a lot to get into and a lot to grow. So it's not a small risk. You took a big leap. You took a big leap off that cliff. And this is a big plane that you
Yeah.
have to figure out how to build, right?
That's true. There's no beating around that bush, and there are plenty of folks who, in the beginning, our business is almost 13 years old now. So I've been building and trying not to break things and moving fast and doing it anyway for quite some time now. And in the beginning, it was maybe because I was 26 and naive, and I had nothing to lose, or I was stupid, or what all those, whatever young boys are. But yeah, I leapt off. I believed in myself, and just been steering the plane ever since.
That's amazing. So how like so you obviously had a picture of what this was going to look like, right? And I think inherent in your napkin is you had a picture of what your business was going to look like. How did that shift? Like what changed? When you think about where the business is today versus where you started, how has it changed? What was the surprise?
Pretty dramatically, actually. I had an idea that people should and wanted to experience things without having the burden of ownership or time or whatever it took to get into some of the nicer, more fun things in life. So going with how I feel, we were into feelings. Initially, though, it was a rental concept, and we were renting luxury cars, we were renting boats, we were renting private aircraft. And that was a business model that had existed, and I was just a new player in the market. But all of our customers, and I'm talking in less than 10 months' time, I picked up on the fact that our customers were calling us saying, we don't want to rent them like we want to own them. We just want to experience them and call it a day. We want to feel, the dopamine, the endorphins, the stories, the life memory posts.
Hi, I'm Chris Gethard, and I'm very excited to tell you about Beautiful Anonymous, a podcast where I talk to random people on the phone. I tweet out a phone number, thousands of people try to call. You talk to one of them, they stay anonymous. I can't hang up. That's all the rules. I never know what's going to happen. We get serious ones. I've talked with meth dealers on their way to prison. I've talked to people who survived mass shootings. Crazy funny ones. I talked to a guy with a goose laugh, somebody who dresses up as a pirate on the weekends. I never know what's going to happen. It's a great show. Subscribe today, Beautiful Anonymous.
That come along with it. But that's all that we want to do. And so that's exactly what I pivoted to in a very short period of time. And I started running experiences. And most folks were interested in cars. So I let the aircraft and the watercraft go, and I focused on cars. And I started following their lead and saying, how do you want to experience these cars? Oh, they're race cars. I want to experience them on a racetrack. I want to experience them somewhere where I can open up the throttle and do what these cars are designed to do. But by the way, I have no experience. So I need someone with me who does have experience and who can teach me how to do this safely. And one thing led to another, and we quickly pivoted from rental lifestyle to experiential lifestyle, and we grew it from there.
So I think, and I don't want to miss this point because it's really important. You're building a successful business, but you're listening to your customers. You had a pretty strong feedback loop that allowed you to sort of harvest this really useful information that they're mostly interested in cars and not the other stuff. So this is a real capital issue that you can deploy your capital in the direction of the people that are most interested. But the other part of it that I think is really important is that you heard that they were interested in something that you weren't really offering, and you pivoted in their direction. Explain to me what that looks like, because most of us are a little more slow about pivoting in that direction. How did you make sure that you were staying open to that?
The good part that I learned early on was that I wasn't so passionate or so specific with the product I was trying to bring to market that I wasn't able to see the forest through the trees. What I mean by that is simply, I'm not a race car driver. I'm not a mechanic. Maybe I've become those things, but in the beginning, I was a kid who had an idea and who wanted to feel the feels. I was my ideal customer more than I was an inventor of a product or service that needed to be pushed out to market. So I went to market wanting to feel the way my customers wanted to feel. And so I was able to relate with them. I was able to shift and change our products and services so that we continued to align with how we felt about things. And that's how I've always run this business. I go into the field and I meet with our customers and I listen to them and I listen to what they tell me. And when they tell me that they want to elevate their experience or their engagement with our brand, I ask them how, and then we create that, because since day one, that's how I created this business. And so it's always, now it's kind of woven into our DNA of how I actually make change and decisions around here. I don't know another way. I would never come up with a product and force it on the market because I'm passionate about it. I always start with the market and say, what are you passionate about? I'm the builder. All that I'm doing is facilitating the things to give you back what you're looking for.
Yeah. And so I love that curiosity mindset. I love the way that you said, I wasn't so passionate about the product, but I realized that I was seeking the same experience as my client was, my customers were. So aligning yourself that way sometimes puts the entrepreneur in the position that, oh, I'm the ideal customer, so I know exactly how to fulfill it. You disquieted that again, and you said, no, you asked them how, right? And then you gave them back what they were asking for when you aligned with that experience. And now it's structural, right? Now that's structural. So explain to me how you run that feedback loop now in a business that's really grown from the idea that you were just going to start off with, renting cars and planes to people.
It's harder. There's no doubt about it. It's harder because then you invest in an infrastructure and you invest in the CapEx and the people. So if you call me tomorrow and say, you know what I really want is airplanes, it's a lot harder for me to just say, great, then let's do that. So you've got to pick your lane. And as you get bigger, you have to realize that you can't make everybody happy all the time. But every Monday, I review our net promoter score reports and I read the feedback and I read one or two of the positives because I think that debriefing on your wins is just as important as debriefing on your losses. But then I go over to the detractors and I say, okay, you signed up for something. Why did you not get out of it what you wanted to get out of it? Was it an expectation thing? Was it a communication thing? Or did we simply not deliver? And I need to figure out how to deliver better. And I try to organize them by quantity. The most feedback I've received is about more time in the cars or the brand of the car or the cities that we bring our cars to. And we address them one by one in order of significance so that I can take the most feedback and address it and work my way down the line. And that's just one component, right? The other component, of course, is all the feedback that you get from us before your experience, during your experience with the employees right there at the racetrack, and or after your experience, and of course the things that feed back to our NPS scores and all of our reviews. But we read those and we take them seriously, and that's part of how we've always done things.
It's really neat. So for people who don't know, NPS is Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score effectively asks one simple question to all of your customers. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how likely are you to refer us, our service or company or product or whatever, to a friend or a colleague? And and it's pretty harsh on what's a promoter and what's a passive and what's a detractor. Only people who score 9 to 10 are considered promoters, right? And then after that, passives, meaning neutrals, are 7 and 8s, and the detractors are anybody between 0 and 6. So if you're between 0 and 6, you're a detractor. And the idea why it's called Net Promoter Score is you do some percentage math and calculation between the two. And if you're above 0, you have a Net Promoter Score that's positive. Net Promoter Score below 0 means that it's negative. It means that more people are likely not to recommend you than and actually negatively influence your brand. So people are 0 to 6 are likely to say bad things about you. 9 and 10 are likely to involuntarily say good things about you. And the others are just not saying anything about you. Correct?
Yeah, no, you nailed it. And that's why it's so harsh because, 60% of the people are not your friends. And that's a lot of your customers. And the people who are your friends may not say something about it. So you have a very small margin of people. You have to get it really, really right for them to promote your brand. And gives you stuff to work for.
In a higher ticket product. So some people are going to say, oh, it's easier to wow your client with a high ticket product where you're giving people this experience. I'm going to bet you're going to say it's harder.
That's a loaded question. And I'll tell you why. Because anyone who's trying to run a business and have a high promotion and have a great brand that attracts and retains its customers, I don't want to say you're at odds with yourself, but that might be your biggest challenge. And what I mean by that is people get into business to make money. But the more customers that you have because you're selling more of your product, the more expenses you incur to ensure that they have a positive experience. And that takes away from your ability to profit. And at the same time, though, if I prioritize profit over customer experience, now that customer experience is going to really show, and I'm going to profit myself right out of business. And so how do you ride the thin line? And this is, we would all love to say, if I'm going to charge you $1,000, I'm going to spend $1,000 right back on you, and you're going to give me a 100 Net Promoter Score. But then what am I in business to do? I don't have a business that has any value. So if I need to create a profit margin and deliver a 100 Net Promoter Score, I've got my work cut out for me. So it's not only a challenge to sell a higher ticket item just because of the cost, but then it's a challenge to turn around, deliver the value that people expect for the price that they paid, and run a business profitably. And that's one heck of a challenge. One I embrace, but that's why it's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, especially with your business name being Xtreme Experience. You're selling people an extreme experience. I mean, it's in the name, right?
It's in the name. We have three pillars here. Ensure safety, of course, is number one. Cultivate teamwork is number two, so that we work together and deliver a positive experience. Those are the three pillars every single decision we make are based on. So it's part of what we do. It's what we breathe.
That's amazing. So I want to get back to what you're looking at in the NPS. If you see something that you're sensitive to, let's say there's a hot button issue against one of the three pillars, but you only saw it in one, is that something you're paying attention to?
I'm always going to pay attention to it, of course. But going back to our abilities to pivot and our abilities to move fast, I've got to decide how and what I'm going to move to address, was it one person's concern or was it 50 people's concerns? Obviously, if I can make 50 people happier, I'm going to start with that, but I'm not going to rule anything out.
Yeah. So let's talk about the process behind you get the NPSs, you're looking at them on Monday, and then, you've got a team, you've got people who are managing various aspects of the company, various deployments, various experiences. How do you bring that feedback to the team? What does that look like?
Every Monday afternoon, we have an exec meeting. I've got 8 people on my exec committee, and they represent all the different departments in our business. And of course, the first thing that we discuss is the prior weeks. The way that our business is set up, for anybody who's not familiar, is we are like a concert tour. So we visit different cities, bringing our program to those cities, and then those cities, they conclude. And we might be there for a day, a week, a month, depends on the size of the market. But we always review post the activation, how that city responded, what were the challenges that were unique, what were the wins that were unique. And each of those departments, from customer service to operations to people and culture, to marketing and advertising, they all take something away from that NPS score. And it's really interesting to see how one thing can be dispersed so individually, where accounting looks at it one way and customer service looks at another way, marketing looks at another way, operations looks at another way, but it's all the same customer. But how they spoke to that customer, how that customer spoke to us, how they paid us, how they didn't, all these interesting things, they weigh into it. And so we make sure to go around the circle and each take something away from it.
I love that. And I love that, because perspective is truth, right? When people are looking at it from their own perspective, that perspective is their truth. Like, they're actually seeing what they see, and it can be totally
There's no
different.
right or wrong answers other than take something away from it.
Right. So where does the try not to work in this paper napkin, right? How do you're saying try not, move fast and try not to break things. I think there's a part of it that is like, if it breaks, it breaks. But you're not trying to break. You're not moving fast to break things. You're moving fast, right? What's that look like? What does it mean?
Yeah, you're moving fast and acknowledging that things will break. And I think that I added that because there's move fast. I bought a poster when we had our first office, right? And it said move fast and break things. And I was like, well, do we have to break things? And then there's, don't break things, which means you're not moving fast enough. I think the old racing saying is if you're not scared a little bit, you're not going fast enough. So there's somewhere in the middle. And, being in the racing industry, it was so obvious that you could get all these analogies, and then you could immediately see them on the racetrack in real life. Because in real life, I don't want to crash a Ferrari, but I also know that if I don't have Ferraris going around the racetrack, that means I don't have customers, which means I'm not doing something right. I'm not appealing to them. I'm not giving them the feelings. I'm not acquiring those customers. But also, you put enough people around a racetrack, and eventually someone's going to bang something up. And so right there on my first day of the job, it was, hey, I'm going to move fast. I'm going to acquire customers. I'm going to learn lessons. I'm going to put myself out there. Because quite honestly, we were forming an industry along with it. This was not something that was on every street corner in every city. So I wanted to be the first to market to do it. But I knew by doing that, I wasn't going to be fully prepared. We were going to put some unqualified people in some tricky situations. But to maximize the experience, as I learned, we might break a few things along the way. So just manage it, mitigate it. Don't catastrophically break things. Don't go that fast, but go fast enough where you pick up some lessons and you break a few things.
There's a really strong metaphor within that for the actual business experience that you provide. And when I did it, and you talked about this, there's a person beside you, right? There's a experienced driver sitting on literally your shoulder, with experience probably in the track a little bit, but mostly experience driving cars quickly, and they're coaching you to get to that line, to get to that experiential line, right?
Yep.
When you're going through this and coaching your team, is that the role you're playing? You're playing the role of the person beside the driver, pushing them a little bit faster?
I like that. That's good. Being I always think that the CEOs, one of their most important jobs is to be a curious coach, right? So I'm always going to be curious. I'm always going to be coaching, but yeah, I'm there to make you feel um, outside of maybe your comfort zone. You're going to have, and I'm there to push you a little bit, never to the point of breaking completely, but when you move fast, there's some stuff that you're going to scratch up along the way, and that's my job, to push the business and to push its people outside so they realize that, hey, most people get to a racetrack, most people work for a business, and they're 5/10. They're in their comfort zone, and that's where they're destined to stay. And they may think that 6/10 is so far outside of their norm on a racetrack, if you've never turned a car at 80 miles an hour before, or in the office if you've never challenged an idea or tried something that could fail. And that's kind of the danger zone, that 60-70%. You get to that 7/10, that 8/10, and you realize how liberating it is, because the magic all happens outside of my comfort zone. And we're still not talking 10/10. We're just suddenly performing at a higher level in the workplace. We have more candor, we have more communication, we try more ideas. You go to the racetrack, once you realize that your car is not going to roll over at 6/10 or 7/10, and you actually can put the pedal down and feel what that acceleration and what those brakes feel like in a Ferrari, it opens up your eyes entirely. And that's the move fast. There's more
Yeah.
out there before you even get to the limit.
I love that. I remember coming around a corner one time, and the second time I was going around the corner, and the driver and the coach beside me said, "Last time you didn't floor it, floor this now. I'll tell you when." And I was still in the corner, and I was definitely not comfortable with when they said it, but they said it with so much confidence that I floored it. And uh, so I got a sense of that feeling that I wouldn't have done on my own. And I think that's really important about what the CEO's role can be in leadership, right? To help people get to that place where they're just slightly uncomfortable. But because that's where growth happens too, right? We don't grow from a place that's comfortable and safe and familiar. It's going into the unfamiliar. That's where we grow, right?
It is. It is. And I really enjoy and thrive now. And even myself, I had to break out of my own comfort zone of how I led or how I took chances or how I communicated feedback to others. But I realized early on that a CEO's job was to be a facilitator. We need to facilitate conversations. We need to facilitate being uncomfortable. And then we need to facilitate pushing through that, being successful, clapping, your hands for your wins and achievements, and doing it all over again. And so now I come to work, and that's what I thrive on, right? I thrive on being that coach, pushing myself and the people around me, and really seeing results come from it.
So who does that for you now? How do you keep in that discomfort zone for yourself?
For me, rule number one, actually, but probably, well, two or three main rules. Rule number one is I always go to the gym. It's all about health and fitness for me. So there's a personal plug, but go push yourself. Your body will always fight against you as you age. And so go fight back. And that nothing feels better to me than just going to the gym and fighting back. Number two, I have a coach. Everyone needs a coach, and so I have a coach, and he pushes me and challenges me. And I'm in plenty of peer groups, CEO and entrepreneurship peer groups, where we sit down and talk about things, because we realize that once you take out the fancy cars or the widgets or whatever it is you do underneath the hood, there's another one. They're pretty much all the same. Businesses are businesses, and So between those two, my personal challenges physically and my professional coaching, those are the two things that really push me.
That's great. We've been ending every episode this season with a shout out to John Ruhlin. John Ruhlin was a guest early in his career and progression. He wrote a best-selling book called Giftology, and his early napkin to us 11 years ago was "What you appreciate appreciates," and that is, what you appreciate something in the world, it appreciates in value. And he started a movement around being grateful, and it changed a lot of people's worlds. So, as a shout out and hat tip to him, because he suddenly passed away late last year, we're asking all of our guests to put some appreciation out in the world. Is there someone you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty easy. Maybe it's the same for many people, but I always have said since day one that I would never be able to get out there, move fast, try not to break things, push my comfort zone, and achieve results from them if I didn't have my foundation, my family. And I've taken my philosophy that I deliver in business, which is that someday could be today, is today, should be today. And I take that back home with me. Knowing that my house is in order is the most important thing to me. So to my wife and two little girls, they're the ones that remind me that business is not the only thing in life. They're the ones that remind me that time is precious and you have to enjoy it and give back. And that's what we do at work. We give everyone experiences every day, but I need to go home and enjoy that as well because they won't be little kids forever. And so I really do enjoy how they keep me balanced. And how, most importantly, I do appreciate them. And I appreciate the time that I have with them when they're little. And I try to, like my customers who say, you know what? I'm 32 years old. I'm going to go drive a Ferrari because 32-year-olds don't drive Ferraris, but someday is today. When I go home and I see my little kids and I say, hey, you're not going to always be little. So let's go do that thing that we might be putting off, that might be more expensive than we should spend money on today. That might take you to a later bedtime than you should be, because you know what? Some days today, let's enjoy it while we have each other. That will appreciate, I appreciate it. And then when you turn around and become better, moms yourselves one day, it will be paid forward in the world. So whether it's at work or whether it's at home, the two things balance me. And that's always been my foundation to be successful.
If you're listening to this and didn't watch Adam light up when he talked about his family, it'd be worth finding the video and finding that. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Thank you for having me.
That was an energizing conversation with Adam Olalde. And if you're like me, you probably are already thinking about how you can move faster without leaving unintended damage behind. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that speed and control are at odds. But what Adam reminded us today is this: leadership isn't just about acceleration, it's about intelligent momentum. It's about moving fast with intention, clarity, and care. Velocity without vision is chaos. You need to know where you're headed before you floor it. Culture is fragile. Don't outrun your values. Breakthroughs don't require breaking everything. Test and adapt early. Restraint is a leadership superpower. Not everything needs to be fast-tracked. Clarity enables empowered action. Your team can only move as fast as they know where they're going. So take a moment and ask yourself, what's one thing that I've been rushing that needs more attention? What's one area where I can bring clarity before I push for speed? Whatever insight came up for you, write it down, scribble it on a napkin, snap a photo and share it with us using the hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom. When you do, you won't just remind yourself of the wisdom, you'll pass it on to someone else who needs to hear it too. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Your support helps us to keep delivering bold ideas and real conversations with difference makers like Adam. And as always, remember this: big ideas often start small. Write yours down, share it, and lead from there. Make it a great day.